All right. Welcome back to the Board Drill Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle. I will warn everyone, I am just coughing and under the weather tonight. So if I sound off or I start coughing and I don't hit the mute button fast enough, I apologize in advance. With me, as always, is my co-host, Matt. Matt, say hi.
Hello.
And tonight we have a special guest, Coach Tim Dycus, who's the head coach at Winter Springs High School in the Orlando area there where Matt is in Florida. Coach, welcome to the Board Drill.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
We won't play. There it is.
There it is. There it is.
Tough night. There we go.
Kyle missed his spot there.
It's been a tough night, if everybody can tell. Coach, we really appreciate you coming on. Especially, me and Matt have talked with you a lot lately. We never got a chance to really meet you, but obviously we've talked via Twitter and email. And we really thought it was a great episode for you to come on and talk to coaches. And I'm going to let you talk a little bit about your backstory, but I'm going to preface it with Coach has been coaching since 1998. We just talked to him about it. He's been in predominantly, I think was he all in Seminole County that whole time, Coach? You said Seminole County the entire time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So Seminole County, you had multiple times that it took you to become a head coach, and then you took over a program who I'm not going to,
You're good.
kind of tippy-toe around it. They weren't very good, right? A lot of lost games. They're a team that everyone wanted to put on their schedule to get a win. And this past year, you have completed the turnaround. You guys made the playoffs this past year and had a winning season. So, Coach, fantastic job. And this is someone who knows the area, knows the team. You're killing it over there, and that's awesome. And congratulations on the season.
Thank you.
B, I think that this is what this podcast is about, is great coaches that have done a good job turning around, programs. We talk all the time to these guys, and I'm not knocking on guys that have great talent and go 10-0 and 12-0 every year and make a run. But the guys that take a team that is under 500 and they turn it into a winning team are the best coaches in America at any level of football. And I'll argue that to the day I die. They're better than NFL coaches. They're better than these college coaches because they did something that not a lot of people can do. Coach, I'm sorry I talked a little bit there, but I wanted to get that intro out. Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll kind of get into it and get into the turnaround that's happened at the program over there.
All right, awesome. Well, first of all, just thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, my turnaround started in 1998. I didn't go to college. I mean, I went to college, but I was not going to be a teacher. I owned my own business, and some things happened, and I always wanted to get into football. So I went to my alma mater, and Coach Worthington was there at the time at Seminole High School, and asked him I wanted to coach football, and he was like, "Look, I don't know you. So my first rule is you can work on freshmen, and you're going to volunteer, and I just want to see what you can do. And if you work out, then we'll go from there." And I just kept working and got paid the next year and stayed there through to when Coach Bernhardt was there. And he went on. Coach Bernhardt was, if you don't know him, he coached at Seminole for a long time. He went to UCF. Then he went to Penn State as the football operations guy, and he followed into the Houston Texans at the time and was his right-hand man. And he is really I'm not very organized in my life. People don't know this, but I'm the art teacher at Winter Springs. So I like to live outside the box. But the reason why I'm so organized in football is because of that man. He taught me so much. When I first was an assistant under him, his football operations for high school was like this thick. And I was just a young coach, and I'm like, what is this? Like, who's going to read all this? And I still use it today. And then, like I said, I worked my way up to JV head coach, and then I put in for the head coach, and they're like, well, you've never been a coordinator. And so I was like, all right. So then that's when Coach Nate Gerke took over at Haggerty, and I reached out there because he was looking for an offensive coordinator. I didn't know him. Went out there, got the job, and just got to be able to fall in the lap of Jeff Driscoll, quarterback out at Haggerty. And we had him for 4 years, and we did great things there, and we brought them to the playoffs in our 4th year there. So then about that time, my kids were going into middle school, and they wanted dad home. So I went back to Seminole and worked there for a while as the offensive coordinator, and then eventually found my way to Winter Springs and was an assistant and just kept working and working and working. And literally, I put in for the job at Winter Springs 4 times in a row. And they were like, no, no, no. And then Finally, after 4 years ago, when Coach Hasselbark stepped down for the second time, I said, all right, well, I'm going for it again. Really, I mean, the main reason why I think I got it, obviously I'd been there, but it was the kids. The kids were like, look, he can do the job, give it to him. So that was really what happened. But before we go on, I just like to say, obviously God has a lot to do with it. But, and then my biggest supporter also is my wife, because when we first got married a year later, we had twins, and she took care of everything. And she's always been my biggest supporter, like, go for it. So, I'm just so happy to be where I am. I always love being at a place, kind of what you said. I like trying to rebuild stuff. When I was at Seminole, went back, they weren't, when I left to go to Haggerty, I was the smart guy because they won the state championship that year with DeBose and all them. But you know what, and then they went through a rough spot, and I went back and tried to help them. And I like, doing those things. So that pushes my envelope.
Yeah, Coach, talk a little more about, I mean, a couple things here. A, the willingness and the humility to not get a job 4 times and continue to go after it. Look, I know a lot of coaches out there, and I'm including myself in this. I don't think I'd have the humility to go after one twice. Matt knows, right? I got a little bit of ego to me. I'll admit it.
Right.
A little bit.
That's actually says a lot about your character, and that's super impressive that you had the humility to sit there and say, okay, I'll wait. Okay, I'll wait again. I'll wait a third time. I'll wait a fourth
Right.
time, and then get it. So just talk a little bit about that process. And honestly, if you can, talk about how you felt during that and kind of what your mindset was.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm human. It was tough. I mean, it was tough when I was at Seminole. I graduated from there. I was born and raised in Sanford. I always tell them I'm the white boy from Bokee, and they laugh and they love it. And I actually, my defensive coordinator was actually a player on my very first freshman team. I was the head coach at Seminole. So so yeah, I have some ego too, but I could either say, I'm going to take my ball and go home, or what? I think the toughest part of that was actually 2 of those times I worked for people that got the job over me. And that was a huge pill to swallow. But you know what? Again, I just said, look, if I want to get to where I'm going to get, I got to do these things. And so that's, like I said, that pushed me to, like, okay, when I get my shot, I'm going to do it my way. And if I crash and burn, then I'm going to say, you know what? I waited 27 years or 23 years to do it my way. So, but thank God to Mr. Gaffney and my principal and Mr. Gomrad, my athletic director. They gave me the shot, and we've just really busted our behinds to get where we are.
Yeah, and you guys have done a great job, and I can already see, right, a big piece of, I'm just going to take a wild guess here at your success. If you talk about how the kids were lobbying for you to be the head coach, I'm guessing that's a big piece of your success is you've really built that camaraderie between the coaching staff and the players there, and that's how you've really built to where you are, correct?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I say this, you could ask my kids if they are on there. I tell them I take every loss and they get every win. So, my first 2 years at Winter Springs, they wanted to, parents and some people wanted me out of there. We were 0-20. We were getting the tar beat out of us. So, but I said, look, we got to stick to the plan. And again, I had a administration that stood by me and said, look, he's got, you got to give him a chance. We got to build some things. And you know what? We had to change our scheduling. We had to fix that. We couldn't compete with a lot of the teams in Seminole County. We're probably, besides Crooms, we're the next largest, high school, and then everybody up is above us. So I did it. We had to do some scheduling. You know what? Jimmy's and Joe's always make you a better coach. We got some Jimmy's and Joe's that come out from our own school. And then we had, a couple of probably 3 or 4 kids that had come from Sanford. So that always helps. And, like I said, we stuck to the process. And I know that's a lot of people say that, but, I was not going to bend to whatever. You had kids wanting to leave, and that's another thing. I'm not a beg you to stay. I'm going to talk to you, and then you're going to make a decision, and I'm going to make a business decision. And eventually I had some really good kids leave, but I was never going to beg anybody, because if you're already thinking that, you've already got a foot out the door. So obviously you're not wanting to be part of the program. So
Yeah, Coach.
it was a little satisfying this year when we got to do stuff and kids weren't there.
Coach, you talk a little bit about, doing it your way. What are some of those non-negotiables that you have as a coach that kind of set the framework for what you guys are doing?
Your grades. I know a lot of people say that, but yeah, you're gonna take care of it in the classroom. You're gonna take care. You're representing our school, and you're representing us as a program, and you're not gonna be a knucklehead. So those are the non-negotiables. And you know what? We have a plan. That's why I was hired. And you're going to run the offense we run, the defense we run. But you know what? There's plenty of times in the game where we listen to our kids and they'll say, "Hey coach, let's do this." I'm like, "Okay, you know what? You're asking for the ball. We're going to get you the ball." So it's a very two-way street, but you got to prove to me that I'm going to put my behind you and believe in you. So those are, kind of the things that we talk about, is that, little things matter. Clean the weight room. Why is there, shouldn't be trash on the floor in the locker room. If you're going to keep this all dirty in the locker room, then how, people go, well, if we say we're wearing black shorts and white shirts in the weight room, then why are you wearing red? You rarely lose a football game on something big. It's a culmination of little things that why you lose the game. And if I can't trust you to pick up the trash in the locker room, how can I trust you on a Friday night?
Man, Matt, that's a clip right there. Like, just we're clipping that one. No, I love that. But coach, it's so true. In doing the little things matters, because the little things add up to the big things. I'm right there with you. And I think the little things, they matter when you're a good team, but I think they matter even more as you're trying to become a good team. And the kids are always like, why does this matter? Why does this matter? And it's hard always to convey to them, it matters. It's really hard for me to tell you why it matters, but I've seen why it matters down the road. And so that's where you talk about that trust. You just got to trust me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Coach, you talked about your administration sticking behind you, and they absolutely have. And that was refreshing to see as a coach, that they have your full backing. But I also went through an 0-10 season, and I know what that feels like. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about, your confidence as a coach in battling through that?
Obviously, it was a very hard grind. I can't talk. I mean, if you went out there and got on the internet, you could find. But when I took over Winter Springs, we had a pretty good quarterback, and we had some things that we should have had a really good season my first year. And 2 weeks before our season start, our quarterback got in trouble with the law. Mm-hmm. If you went out there, you would know. And everybody was like, "Oh my God, like, you waited 23 years and now it's all falling." I had to fire my defensive coordinator in the middle of the season. And I'm just like, why am I doing this? This is crazy. I waited this long, but you know what? Thank God that we had an athletic secretary at the time. Ms. Gibbs had been at Winter Springs forever. And, she just said to me, she's like, "Look, there's a reason why you're going through this, and you're the man that has to do it. You're here and you're going through these things because you were picked and you're strong enough to do it." And you know what? I was like, "You're right." And I think it has a lot to do also is when I was, high school, I played freshman football. And then I got to sophomore year, I weighed 115 pounds, and I had coaches going, "You're going to get hurt. We're not, you're never going to play again." So I quit. And I was like, you know what? I think that's always been a chip on my shoulders, that I was never going to let anybody make me quit again. And so, going through 0-20, I was like, you know what? I can do this. If we all just band together, we got through those 2 rocky seasons, and we went 6-4, and then we had a really good season this year.
That's awesome. I'm sorry. Well, Matt's been through it, right? Matt went 0-10. I went 1-9 in my first year as a head coach. And it is the loneliest feeling. And if you haven't been a head coach and listen to this podcast, you will never know until you are. The loneliest feeling in the world is being a head coach and not winning. I don't care what anyone says. You will never be so alone in your life. Your wife won't understand. The people around you won't get it. And not that your wife won't be supportive, not that other people won't be supportive, but no one will understand it.
Right.
And
Correct.
it's the same thing you said, Coach. I remember calling Matt once a week and starting off the conversation with, "What am I doing?" And that was how every conversation started for a week for 15.
hmm It's tough. It's really tough, and my wife would come home and be like, she would have a pissed off look on her face, and I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" She was like, "I'm ready to fight those parents in the dang stadium because they're talking about you and the kids." And I'm like, "All right, you need to sit on the track from now on because I don't need you fighting in the stands with somebody."
Yeah, note to self, I never let my wife sit in the stands. We always found her a place in the end zone. Funny enough, Coach, even at the places where I was the DC and we were really good, if we had one bad game,
Oh
they were still
yes,
hollering mean things to
absolutely,
me. It never changes.
absolutely, correct, correct. And believe me, I love winning. Like, me and my wife, we do backgammon. I'm gonna like, look, I'm not, I'm taking it out on you. We're trying to win games, so.
Oh yeah, Coach, Monopoly's banned in my household. That's a real thing. It resorts in real fights, not physical,
Right.
but real fights. So, Coach, obviously you've built some culture there. We've been talking about and all this thing. You don't have to go full, give me a 50-minute dissertation on it, but talk a little bit about your thoughts on culture and how you've instilled some of that culture over there at Winter Springs.
Well, I think a lot of it. Yes, I have, but somebody who's came over this last year was Tristan Raines from Seminole High School, and we needed a kid that had been in a culture, that had been at a winning program, that had some dog in him. And we have other kids that have that in them. Jalen Lohman, Omar Scott. We needed some kids with that, and there's Winter Springs kids that have that in them too. But we all needed we just needed that first victory. And I know it was a kickoff. It was I think in the spring this year we beat East River, and it was really, it was tied, but our JV I think they kicked a 30-yard field goal, and you'd have thought we won the Super Bowl. But they just needed that. And
Yeah.
then, it just got contagious. And we started off the year against Pine Ridge, and we started rolling, and things just started going our way. And then, we played a team out of Colorado, and everybody's like, "What the heck are you doing? Why don't you play?" And that was a great thing. I mean, yes, they beat us, and they went on to win in the state championship in Colorado. But it just showed it was something new. So we talk about family, and I tell them all the biggest thing I try to get to them this year was, it's about us. It's not about anybody else. Oh, we're winning, but we're not playing anybody. Oh, you're losing, now you're back old to be the Bears. And I'm like, who cares? I said, dude, and that's one thing they know about me, and people that really know me. I don't care what people think. It goes through one year, yes, for the certain part. Yeah, I think what my administrator on them, but we're going to do it our way. And I'm not going to apologize for anybody who I play and how we do it and whatever. Like, I'm worried about us. And they finally bought into that this year. And really, that last game through our rival with the team down the street. And, we had to win. We had to have that one. And we got it. And, they were, we went to the playoffs for the first time, and they were like, "Holy moly, this is what it's about." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, this is what the playoffs is about." And so now we're just trying to build the culture of, it took us this much to get to where we are. You're going to have to do way more to get to be the district champ and to go
Yeah.
farther. Like, you're going to have to work harder. And they're looking at me like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Like, yeah, yes,
This is the beginning, right?
yes,
This is the
correct,
beginning, guys. We got to keep going.
correct."
So
And
That's
we're
what.
stepping in a huge district this year. So I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
That's one of my favorite, what he said just a minute ago, the team down the street. One of my favorite ways to refer is to your rival without mentioning their name. Absolutely love it. Coach, I'm in the community here. I was actually over on your sideline during your spring game watching those refs throw flags across the field for about 60 minutes. It was absolutely wild. But, you know, seeing what you've done in the community and, not knowing if you realize it or not, but you see a difference on just the social media, the Facebook Winter Springs community pages. You hear people talking about it in the community, about the football team now. Can you talk a little bit about the difference you've seen now with just a little bit of transformation with the team and how the community's bought into that?
Absolutely. I think it was actually last year when we went 6-4. I think we won our first. I think we did win our kickoff classic, or we won our first game or something. And I'm walking out, and there's a student, just young girl, and she's bawling, crying. And I'm like, "Honey, are you okay? Like, do you need help?" She's like, "No, coach." I'm like, "I'm just so happy for you and your team. Like, what you've been through. I'm so happy to be a Bear. I actually get to wear my shirt around the town and the school." And I'm like, "Holy moly!" Like, and she was just a regular kid. And I know other teams and other coaches will probably get mad at me, but you know what? I think football sets your whole calendar for the year. And if you can
Oh,
have
yeah.
a really good football season, then usually you're going to have a pretty good whole sports year. And I think I think it does. It sets the culture. Less fights at school, and kids are happy. I mean, we do pack our stands. That's one thing I can say about our kids, that, you know what? We are 0-20, and we still had big gates and lots of kids in the stand. So it's there. And now the community is starting to, come back around, and our Pop Warner is getting better. And those kids are wanting to come to their actual schools that they play Pop Warner. There's a logic. And it's starting to build and starting to grow. And like I said, yes, we have a tough season coming up. Our schedule's definitely going up higher this year.
Coach, one of the other things I want to kind of ask you about, because, a situation I'd love to have one day is you were able to bring your son on staff with you.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And I believe served as your offensive coordinator.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And he
Yep.
had some playing time in Europe and
Oh, yes,
Switzerland,
sir.
I believe.
Yep. He's been 3 years ago. So he went to college, and in 2019, COVID hit. So it got all wiped away. And so he bounced around doing some things, and now he's finishing up his degree. But 3 years ago, he got on this website, Euro Players, and put some film up. And luckily, the head coach in Amsterdam actually knew some of his teammates from Monmouth College in Chicago. And he called them up and said, "What can you tell me about Walker Dycus?" And they were like, "Hey, he's a great guy, blah, blah, blah." So he went to Amsterdam 3 years ago and played for Rotterdam and was the MVP of the championship game. They lost, but you know what? Then he went from there to he played in Switzerland this last year in Bern, and they were doing really well. And then like halfway through the season, we're watching the game, and he gets hit at like halftime, and then plays the whole second half, and they lose by like 1 point. And then he couldn't wake when he woke up. He went to he's like, "What the heck? My hip's messed up." And he had fractured his hip and like tore like three ligaments in his thigh. And he said the Switzerland doctor was like, "What do you do? How did you play a whole half of football?" He's like, "I'm a coach's son. You play. You just keep playing." And so then he came in, and halfway through last year, I made a change at offensive coordinator, and he took over, and now he was with me this full time. And then here in a month, he's going to be leaving to go to Warsaw, Poland, and he's going to be playing in Poland until about May, or depending on how those playoffs go, and then he'll be back with me in the fall. He's been a great addition. It's awesome. I got to see him play, and now I get to see him play some professional ball, and now I get to coach with him, and Mom gets to see us fight on the sideline and yell at each other. But it's been a pleasure. He's an awesome coach.
You get your son on as the offensive coordinator. You add a talent like Tristan Raines into your offense. Can you kind of talk about how your offense has morphed and what it's kind of led you guys to be?
Well, last year was, Tristan's first year with us, and a lot of people didn't know him, and so he got lots of touches and jet sweeps, and he's a kick returner and punt returner, and he did a really, really great job. And we were trying to, we were not going to line up and smash anybody. So then this year we really looked, and I'm not saying this just to say it, but when your website came up and you started having all the Georgia Tech stuff in there, we started shifting and motioning and doing everything smoke and mirrors. And, teams started going, okay, we're going to take Tristan away from you. What are you going to do now? And we really had, our running back, Omar Scott, almost ran for 1,000 yards. We had, Christian Ryan, he hadn't caught a ball, maybe one or two balls all year, and he caught 4 touchdowns against linemen. We had a transfer come in from Miami at quarterback. We just got lucky, and he showed up. Isaac Johnson, he's a senior, but he's gone, and he came in and did a really great job. But you know what? As much as I love offense, as much as I love my son, I am you win. I say it because you win with defense, and our defense has been great the last 2 years. Like I said, my defensive coordinator Isaiah Rouse was with me as a kid when he was in 9th grade, and now he's coaching with me, and he's done a fantastic job. And our free safety Jalen Lohman is a 10th grader, and at one point in time he was second in interceptions in the entire nation in all classifications of high school football, and ended up with 10 interceptions this year.
10 is a lot.
Yeah, and he was
high school year.
Yeah, and he was District 9 Player of the Year. We just put it together this year, but Tristan, Tristan actually played some defense at the end of the year. He's a special kid. I love that kid because he gets me, and there'll be, we laugh, we'll scream and yell at each other, and then next minute we're hugging like we're just competitors. And there's plenty of times he'll come to the sideline and grab Walker and like, throw me the ball. They can't cover me. And I'm looking at Walker like, yeah, do it, dude. Just throw him the football.
Coach, it just seems like, obviously, and this is, again, big piece of success, it just seems like you're having fun too, right? This is a guy who you've been like you said, you waited 23 years, and now you're having fun out there, and it seems infectious around you.
It was, like I said, the kids know, at the end of the year, like I said, I've been doing this for 27 years. And there was a point at the end of the year going, man, we've gotten here. I think I'm good. Maybe it's time to hang out with the wife more and do those things. And then she's like, we just started talking one night, and, I was sitting there in my head going, I've waited 27 years and I finally got it to where I want it, and now I want to walk away. Like, what, am I stupid? So, I kind of scared him at the banquet, and was like really somber and thanking everybody. And I could see the kids' faces like, what is he leaving? Like, what is he doing? And I'm like, well, if you have me back, I'll come back, and they all started cheering. And, it is, you guys have been head coaches. It's a grind as the head coach. You don't really get to coach. You put out fires, you deal with parents, you're trying to fundraise. Luckily I have great assistants that coach the kids. And I tell them all the time, you coach the kids, I'm coaching the coaches. Yes, I let them do their thing, but I'm fiery, and I want it a certain way, and that's the way we're going to do it. And they, but they buy into, and they do we don't have 3 teams. We have a freshman team and just a varsity team. And so I really have a great freshman coach this year named Coach Green, and he's just done a tremendous job. And that, we're starting to put a couple things together, but last year was last year, and this year's this year. And, the class of, the districts came out today, and we got a doozy. So, and we're playing more Seminole County teams this year, because that was, one of the things that the Seminole County people wanted to do. They're starting to make us play each other. They got to realize I have just under 2,000 kids when I'm playing, wanting to play bigger, gigantic schools.
Yeah, close to 4,000.
Yeah. But you know what? It is what it is. I'm not going to back down. We'll go and play who they put in front of us, and it is what it is,
Yeah, and I get it. I have my own thoughts on Seminole County, and I'm allowed to have them because I don't work in Seminole County, but I'll keep them to myself for now. Coach, it's real quick, obviously we've talked, we've gone through some things, but one thing I keep wondering, I look up on your Twitter, what's Bob?
Band of Brothers.
Okay.
It was a saying back when actually Winter Springs, I think, made it to the I want to say the regional final. I think it was something they had. So I liked it. And that's what I said. That, I tell the team all the time, we are brothers and we're going to argue and you're going to fight and you're going to yell. One of the other things I stole from Coach Curry that coached at Kentucky a long time, if you go on YouTube and you might have all heard it, he talks about the huddle. And the huddle doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, white, black. It doesn't matter. It's those 11 guys in there. And that's kind of where we took the us mentality, us against the world. And I know everybody's like, oh, well, everybody says that. Well, we were. It's just like, look, I don't care what others say. They don't control us. We control what we do.
It's so true. I mean, just everything you're saying, it doesn't matter. It does. Like you said, it's guys in your program, and it doesn't matter what anyone else says. They're going to say whatever. And then the huddle thing I love. I always say, like, America would probably be a better place if we all just acted like we were on a football team together.
Absolutely. It would.
I have seen a lot of people get along that don't have anything to do with each other on a football team and couldn't be further different. I mean,
absolutely. Well, and the other thing is, not to get off tangent, but I wear this red visor all every Friday night, and everybody's like, why do you have a red visor? It's not our colors, and why has it got a skull on it? Well, I'm a big Mike Leach guy, and I love Pirates too. I love Pirates. And anybody knows about the Pirates, when they hoisted the red flag, it was either we're going into battle and not making it, or you're going into battle and not making it. But somebody's not coming out of this. And I kind of just told our kids, like, look, we're we're going into it, and so that's the kind of mentality we have. We don't, yes, we're going to take you on, and wherever the chips fall, they fall.
I love that, Coach. Swing your sword, baby.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's just, again, another iconic guy that, gone too soon, but good Lord.
Yes.
I was watching old episodes of Friday Night Lights the other day, just in the background. I like to put on TV shows while I work sometimes. And it was the episode where the coach is in the gas station and Mike Leach walks up and just starts talking to him.
Right.
And I was like, only Mike Leach would have been, he's like, Coach, you got to swing your sword. He's like, yeah, swing it.
There you go. There you go.
Got it right here.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. So, Matt, any other questions? I mean, we just want to talk with Coach a little bit about that, and then we'll drop our last question here. But any other follow-up questions?
No, I mean, I think this kind of hit on what we wanted to discuss was, you know, it's not, we see so many good coaches out there, and it's not all about winning state titles, but when you see a turnaround like this and you see what it does to the community and you see the impact it has on the school, it's just exciting to see. It's exciting to see for the kids, see that hard work pays off. And, I think Coach has shown us a little bit about what perseverance does for you as a coach and as a program. That I think that goes a long way in your coaching journey. You've shown it. And I think that's a lesson to be learned by a lot of coaches, especially now. You get these young coaches that want to jump right up to be the offensive coordinator right away and try to get a head coaching job. I probably got a head coaching job too young, looking back, and maybe I should have waited a little bit, but it's always refreshing to see that perseverance and hard work pay off.
Oh, I appreciate it. And that, that is one thing these days, trying to fill a staff. Cause like you said, and I tell my young coaches all the time, I'm like, no, dude, you're not calling the plays yet. You'd learn to wash the laundry and those kind of things. It took me this long. I'm not saying everybody should wait 23 years, but I thought I knew all the answers when I was young. And then, like I said, Coach Bernhardt said, no, you don't know nothing. And, I do tell them that I'll never ask them to do something I never did. And I washed laundry, and I've painted more locker rooms and all that kind of stuff. And, I just think that sometimes they just, it's all about the scheme. It's not about the scheme. I mean, to the most part, it's about, it's all little things. It's not what we know, it's what the kids know, but it's
Correct.
Also, are the kids going to buy into what you're trying to sell? And if they're not going to buy into what you're selling, I don't care what scheme you got. They're going to be like, this guy's full of it. I'm out of here. The kids want to be held accountable. They don't want to jerk and all that kind of stuff, but they want to know where the line is. They want to toe the line. They want discipline, and they want to know someone. And I tell my kids, look, I'm going to coach you hard, but I'm going to also love you. I'm going to put my arm around you and give you a hug, but I'm also going to get into you when you do something wrong and call you out on it.
No, Coach, and I'll further this, and this is my opinion of myself, so don't anyone out there think I'm talking about you, but I also think when I became a father, I became a better coach. And I have not gotten to coach a football season after I became a father because I kind of stepped back, but I did coach a track season. And I think maybe that was my best coaching job, was that year as a track head coach. Kids had fun. They loved it. I ended up stepping away from being a teacher at that point. They were very upset with me for leaving. But I go back, and I think it's just that perspective of like, it's almost like, would I want my kid to be treated that way? Or the better question is, would I want me to coach my kid?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And again, I'm not saying you can't be a great coach and not be a dad, because it's not for everyone. It doesn't happen to everyone. I didn't have a kid till I was 37 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I thought that gave me great perspective. And that was another piece of just learning and growing up, right? I had kids later, but I needed that perspective. And I think when I do go back one day, I'll be a better coach because of that. Yeah, I didn't have that perspective. There's no other way to say it. And I think that's where life experience does matter. I'm not a big guy that's saying experience. I don't weigh heavily on experience because I really don't. But life experience helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. And, and having, like I said, like having my son on there, because, sometimes I do get on him. And my son's like, you have no clue. Like, you get to go home. When I played football, I got it at the football field, and then I had to go in the house with him and get screamed and yelled at, for why did I throw a bad fit, and my wife makes the joke today, I'd go outside and throw with Walker, and he was like 3 or 5 years old, and he'd throw the ball in the dirt. And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm not sitting out here if you're going to throw in the dirt. And he's like, he's 3. And I'm like, I don't care. He's going to learn how to throw the football and hit me in the chest.
I love that. Well, Coach, we always end every podcast with the same question. And it's our favorite question that we ask coaches. What is the most unique or different thing that your program does that no one else does?
Ooh, okay. Well, I stole it. But we had actually this year, and I think it helped us, we had I think right before the season started, we had a Friday night, midnight weightlifting. We worked out at midnight, and we let the kids wear costumes and whatever they wanted. They could wear combat gear, paint their faces in camo. And it was probably the greatest time we ever had. We had probably 50-something kids in there just screaming and tug of war and doing weights. And then we had pizza for them after, and we were there for about an hour and a half. So it was that Friday night from midnight to 1:30, and we're going to do that again and probably do it some more. And I think that really started our year off when we did that, because the kids were like, all right, we are a team. We're not just a bunch of guys who show up to practice. But I actually saw the Swamp Kings when Urban was there, and they used to have that, and Tebow and all them went in there one night and they had painted their faces. I'm like, man, that looks like a cool idea. And so I said to the kids, and they're like, hell yeah, we'll show up. And they did. Like I said, we had about 55 kids there, and they were just, some of them had Superman on, and it was, Halloween costumes, and they were jumping around screaming, and just, they were allowed to be kids. And that's the biggest thing, is they were just allowed to have fun and laugh and be kids.
Yeah. Now, Matt, I never watched that documentary, but I hear other people have watched. I refuse to watch it, but being a guy from that other school in the state of Florida, I'm not watching that. No, but I love it, Coach, because I do think that the best bonding moments happen when you do something slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of 90% of the bonding happens over just shared experience. But then when you do that one event that's different, you get to see a different side of kids and people and things like that.
Right.
And I think that's when almost it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like maybe you're stacking everything up, and that's the time that you solder it all together at that point. Yep. Or I don't know what kind of analogy I'm going with here, but.
Hey, Kyle, do you remember the school we were at together down the road from Coach Dycus? We used to have a carnival. Do you remember what I made you do one year? So we had a carnival, and they wanted us to set up these little booths and stuff. And I said, well, we're going to do our own thing. So I gave the coaches a football helmet, Coach Dycus, put my coaches in a football helmet, and I brought out all the water balloons that I could.
Yeah.
And it was an onslaught. Hey, $1 for 10 water balloons, and you get to whale them at Coach. And
wow.
Man, the kids
you
had a blast.
You just gave me a fundraising idea.
Coach, we probably made more money off kids wanting to hit me with water balloons than anyone else. So
Hey.
we
had no line for any other coach. Coach Bradburn had a line out the door.
I think Ron Doan probably had a little bit of a line.
Yeah, he probably had one too.
But it's all, it was all in good fun. And a lot of it was my defensive guys that they saw their chance to get back at me because we practiced hard as heck and I was hard on them. Loved them, but we were hard as hell on them. And they were ready to get their get back. And you know what? I had to sit out there. I think Matt's right. I think I got pelted with about 150 water balloons that day. So
that's awesome.
We gave them point blank range. They might have.
Yeah, it was wear a helmet and cover up, where, and just take it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I love it. Well, Coach, again, thank you for joining us. Congratulations on everything. We followed you closely this year. You probably don't know this, but we checked in every week, and Matt had Winter Springs too. He's like, "Hey, man, they won again." I was like, "All right, here we go." And I think that's part of the coaching community. We want to see guys successful, and we kind of knew at one point. We talked about this a long time ago. I was like, "We're gonna have to get him on the podcast," and he was like, "You think he'll come on?" I was like, "Let's just nag him until he comes on," because we thought it was a story people need to hear. And after talking with you, it became a better story, right? It became patience over 20 plus years and all these things. So I appreciate you sharing your story. I think it's going to be really good for coaches to hear it. It's probably a story I should have heard early on that I didn't get to hear that would have helped me in hindsight. So Coach, thank you for coming on the Board Drill podcast. For me, for Coach Dycus, for Coach Dixon over here. We will see you next time on another episode of the Board Drill podcast.